Hey, a good way to contrast how tourism is going to operate is to look at how things are operating in different societies today, and then doing a comparison with how things are done. Okay, so I'm going to do a screen share here, and then we can go into how a certain aspect is done today. So if we have a look at this, we can see this is a little bit old. It's from 2016, but it's still relevant today because this is a very normal way to handle immigration. And I thought this one was particularly descriptive. I'm going to play here a little bit.
They say they came to Israel to seek refuge from conflict or persecution, but the Israeli government has granted asylum to fewer than 1%. It says they're economic migrants and that they threaten the security and identity of the Jewish state.
Okay, so the first issue there is that African migrants are basically being denied because they threaten the identity of Israel. And the reason for that is that they have basically a long tradition of faith in Judaism. Now, how that contrasts with what we're trying to achieve in Sorism is that reason is an attribute that goes across all groups of basically the human species. Obviously, it doesn't apply to other animals, but all humans have the ability to use words, have the ability to use concepts, and it is absolutely not determined by skin color or what country you come from. So because of that, we could basically allow for immigration from any part of the world, and it would not cause any trouble because the foundational attribute that we are relying on is people's ability to reason.
It's not only about the 45 or 50,000 people that already are here in Israel, it's about the potential. Because those people tell their friends and families back home, look, this is a very nice place, do come over.
All right, to that, we in Sorism say, yeah, go for it. Because we would like to create the effect exactly like that, that people are telling their friends and family that this is a nice place, come over. And then we'd be cheering that because in establishing something new, you do need new people to come in. And even later as well, it is highly beneficial to any rational being to have a lot of immigrants. It might not be rational in a context where the institutions are not able to handle the pressure of people with very different ideas coming in. And that is why we need a whole bunch of institutions to handle migrants coming from different ideological and cultural backgrounds. But that's something that I've spent quite a substantial amount of thinking on and figuring out how to handle those kind of problems. And I do think that these are problems that can be handled very effectively. And I'm really looking forward to getting my hands dirty on some of those problems, because this can be done, and this can be sorted out so that it can work really well for the people involved. And it's very important to emphasize here that immigration is a very selfish thing to do. It's very beneficial for my life to have many immigrants. The kind of work that immigrants can do, because many of them are looking for better opportunities. So they come from countries that are not the richest, right? So they don't have a lot of capital from where they come in. So to them, any kind of increase in standard of living is gonna be, they're gonna be very happy with that. So they're willing to take a lower wage. They're willing to do different types of work. And when people around me are willing to do a lot of work, is very beneficial for my life because the productivity of my life is increasing as well. So the general productivity in society, where there's a lot of immigrants, is just much higher than when people are not coming into the country. All right, enough about that, and we'll continue here.
Many people who've migrated from Eritrea or Sudan live here in South Tel Aviv. It's been the hub of the African community for several years. But over that time, Israeli government policy has changed, and many here are now living on borrowed time. The migrants are informally allowed to work, but must renew their conditional permits as often as every 2 months.
All right. So in Sorisn, it should be much easier than this. You don't need a permit to work. The way that it will work is, I do think that there should be a border control where you show your passport and stuff like that. Other people think that it should not be. I think that depends on the context. If you're in a neighborhood where there's a lot of just friendly people around in the countries around you, maybe that can work. You don't need a border control at all. But if you're in an environment where there's much more hostile neighbors, then I do think that you need a lot of border control. So it's contextually dependent. But once people are inside of the borders, they should basically be able to walk up to the closest store they can see and ask, "Hey, do you need some help in your business?" And then the business owner should be free to say, "Absolutely, you're on the team," and just sign a contract to that effect. So it shouldn't be any permit. It shouldn't be any delays in those kind of things. Basically, the same day that you're landing your plane, you should be free to get a job in some reason.
And they know that one day, when they turn up at the office to do that, it won't be a permit they get, but a summons to the Helot detention centre. And this could be the beginning of the end of their time in Israel. We drove out to Helot from Tel Aviv. It's in the middle of the Negev desert, and it took us 3 hours to get there. Helot is in a military zone. The silence of the desert is frequently broken by the sound of explosions and Air Force jets flying over.
All right, so the only reason that I can think of in reason that you get into a camp like this is basically you've been violating some laws. For example, you punch somebody in the face, or you stole something, or you acted in a criminal manner, initiating force. Unless there's something like that, people should be free to go around and being productive and using their minds and trying to increase the standard of living that they're having. Any kind of camps like this, there could potentially be a camp where people are coming in as new immigrants, and we just need a facility to process their documents and stuff like that. If they're coming in huge droves, there could be something like that, but it should. I don't think it should look like this with fences and stuff like that. Okay, let's continue.
Overhead. The government calls this an open stay centre, but it's run by the prison service and conditions are strict. At night time there's a curfew, so residents have to report back by 10 p.m. They're not allowed to work either, and in such an isolated area.
Yeah, so the condition that people are not allowed to work, this is not very beneficial for their mind, and that is a huge problem, I think. When it comes to humans, reason is man's means of survival. So if you want people to live, then it's very important that people are free to work. Obviously, in Israel, they have a certain there are certain things that they want to promote. It's a Jewish state, and reason is not. We don't have any religious affiliation or anything like that. We're just focused on reason and your ability to think and deal with the world and stuff like that. So it's a very different approach here. But we would not need any kind of restrictions on people's ability to use their mind, because it's exactly the mind that we want people to use. So it would be more completely the opposite when it comes to migrants in Solreason. We would want them to use their mind to the full capacity, to work hard, to build businesses, and prosper as much as they can to the best of their ability. All right. So I think that that contrasts a little bit how we're thinking about immigrants compared to existing societies. I could have taken any other countries as well. Israel, I just like this particular one because it was good footage and stuff like that. I'm not opposed to Israel in any way. I just want to contrast how we're thinking about immigration in Solreason versus how it's done in other societies. All right. Thank you very much for your time, and reason and happiness.